Okay, so on the last little try to get this car running thing, I replaced the fuel pump, I took the fuel tank out, cleaned it up, replaced the fuel pump, and did a bunch of stuff to it. None of that did anything. The car still doesn't run. So, next option is to do what I should have done in the beginning and go through all the wiring. Now, one thing I'm really suspicious about is that this last owner of this Honda Accord CB7 1990 put in an anti-theft system. So it's an old 1990s car alarm or early 2000s. I'm not too sure, but it's pretty old. And you can tell this guy's not or wasn't the best when it comes to working out wiring. So the wiring is kind of shit. That plus there was a switch in the car that was there earlier, and since I had to replace the dash panel, I don't really know what happened to the switch or where it is. I think I soldered it up and closed the circuit. Honestly, I don't know. So, time to redo wiring. Now, originally, when I started pulling this car apart, I thought I went through the wiring and I thought I took a good long look at it to see what the issues were. But honestly, there was just so much extra wiring. I did pull out a lot of the old wiring, most of it having to do with a bunch of weird lights that the last owner put in the gauges, and like a glow LED face. If you want to see all the gauge pulling apart and cleaning up stuff, that video is going to be in the description down below. But what we're focusing on today is what's underneath the gauges. I don't know where this dirt came from. Anyway, this is the anti-theft. Oh, it's still plugged into something. Anyway, this is the anti-theft system that was in the car from the last owner. It doesn't really have much information on it. There's no brand name. It just says made in Taiwan, FCC. Maybe I should look this up first. Anyway, this is what the main unit was. My first idea is to plug this thing back in as if it was still installed in the vehicle and see if that fixes the problem. Maybe this thing will start then. Because the car cranks much stronger than earlier. And honestly, like, I'm getting a lot of 1990s, early 2000s nostalgia from this car. Even though I was technically, when this car was 5 years old, I was just born. But yeah, granted, this is all done by the previous owner. We've had this car for 10 years. It ran like twice, and then we let it sit for a while. Okay, so I've reconnected the little car alarm system back in here. Gonna put the key in the ignition as soon as this plane finishes flying over and see if I get fuel pump priming noises. Come on, fuel pump priming noises. Nope, still no fuel pump priming noises. Actually, the fuel gauge isn't even reading anything. Oh, that's not it then. See, I can definitely hear stuff going on in the fuel pump. Or that relay, I can feel it, like clicking and stuff. Okay, so my next option, which is kind of going to take a little bit longer, well, not as long, is going to be to check every single fuse in this car. I'm going to start with the one under the hood. Honestly, I don't know what kind of fuse is what. I probably should be looking it up, but hey. Yep, I can officially say every fuse in here is good. Oh, probably just saw the back of my head this whole time. But yeah, pull out every little fuse in here. They're all good. Big ones are all good. Thing is, I don't know what the hell these are or what they do. Well, I'm gonna check the ones underneath the dash too, see if they're bad. You probably won't be able to see that, but I'll show you where it is. Okay, so the other fuse box for this car is actually right underneath here. Right there. You might not be able to see it with this phone or this camera. So if I'm gonna be going around and rooting around the dash, right, I'm really thinking about just pulling these seats out, or at least this is the driver's seat. That might be a good option, actually. We do that. Interesting shaped bolt. I thought it would be longer. What's kind of weird is I got the bolts out of the front of the seats, and they were a lot looser than I was expecting. Seat is out. I'm gonna vacuum clean it, lay down, and figure out what the problem is. Okay, so the car is officially clean and lay downable without feeling all dirty and stuff. And now all I gotta do is jump underneath and get to work. Okay, so basically here I am underneath the dash, and here you can see the actual car alarm module. Now, once you look at the module, you see just how many wires there are to track down, and you see just how many unknown random wires are in this car. Like here, all the way up through here. It's pretty much a rabbit's nest, or bird's nest?
I don't know, whatever that saying is. So what I'm going to be doing is systematically running through and going and disconnecting every single one of these wires and removing them. I'm hoping that this little unit has an immobilizer in it or associated with it that's cutting power to my fuel pump. If that's the case, then once I remove this this car alarm, it should let me start the car. Now, the reason I'm removing it, for one, it's a 20-year-old car alarm system. I doubt it's going to be any good, especially after sitting in 100-degree summer weather in Vegas. And two, I don't actually have the key fobs for it, so it's pretty much worthless either way. So I'm going to get started by pulling out each and every single one of these wires one by one until it is no longer connected. And look, there are even some wires running through here that don't have any fuses connected to them right there. So the whole thing is just a massive mess. I'm gonna start pulling pieces out and figuring out what's going on with it, because it is like, I've done some janky installs, but this is a janky. Look at this. This is a power wire that's just completely bare in some parts. That must have caused a short circuit or something at one point. Who does stuff like this? Anyway, I'm not gonna bother to record all this because it's just gonna be me cutting and soldering 10-15 wires, and I'm pretty sure no one wants to see that. Time to get started, and here, let's get it started. What is the name of that song? Even being in this car is making me think of the 90s and 2000s.
So while I've been pulling out all these wires, I unplugged this wire from the actual car alarming thingy, and it goes here to whatever this is. So it's been tapped into twice, and it has this connector that should be plugged into the car, but it's not. Instead of being plugged into the car, it's being plugged into the car alarm. I'm really hoping that that's some kind of fuel pump control wire or whatever, because that's just odd. I mean, look at that. That shouldn't, like, what? So next I gotta figure out where does this wire connect to and see if this not being plugged in or plugging that in will fix it. So let's see. So I've pretty much disconnected and resoldered almost every wire there is under the hood that would be anywhere remotely associated with this car alarm. I've pulled out, must be like 6-7 wires by now. And I've traced out these two. They are coming from the car alarm to the engine bay. Got one that looks like it's almost some kind of ground. Then another going to the siren right here. Gonna pull these two. I'm basically gonna cut these wires and drag them back into the cab. They changed like 3 different times and 3 different colors. And then that should be it. The car alarm should be out. All the wires are resoldered, heat shrunk, and put back together. And if the car doesn't run, then the car alarm wasn't a problem, but I'll be pretty happy knowing that the car alarm is no longer in the car. But that means I got something else to worry about. So let's see. Okay, so this right here is the whole wiring harness for the car alarm. I have officially removed the whole thing. I'm going to finalize some soldering connections and heat shrinks and see if this car starts.
Okay, so here we are back under the dash. You can see it is a whole lot cleaner, and I have taken out a lot of little connections like this and retied them together, and I'm going through and checking every single connection that was in here to make sure that not a single wire is loose or damaged. It doesn't look like this alarm had an immobilizer in it. I didn't find any relays, so more than likely it was not the reason the car wasn't starting, but I'm still happy to have it out. It really cleans up the whole underside of the car, and since I didn't have the fobs for it anyway, there was no sense in keeping it. So what the hell is this wire? I don't know where it goes. And that's the last unknown wire left in this car. I'm gonna solder these up. Solder those up right there. Oh, those are already soldered, but heat shrink them. Solder and heat shrink this one. Solder and heat shrink the one over here. And it should be done. I'm gonna see if it starts.
And here's one last look at everything I pulled out of the car. Talk about useless weight reduction. I'm gonna throw all this in the trash. Okay, so it's super dark right now, but I just finished up cleaning all the wiring up and doing all that stuff. So, just gonna see if there's any fuel pump priming noise. Why are you freaking out, Dougie? Anyway, yeah, there's no light in here to see or anything. Let's turn that on. Even that old school light, it's so 90s. Okay, so let's just see if there's any fuel pump priming noises. That's all I'm after right now. Maybe do a crank or two. I just want to see if this thing will finally start. I do want to see what the headlights look like real quick though. So that's what the gauges look like. Nope, definitely still no fuel pump. So, oh well. Next step is to replace the fuel filter and the main relay. I think the main relay is good, but why not? Got nothing else left other than the ECU. Checked everything else. So if you like this video, hit like and subscribe, because I am going to get this thing running no matter what it takes. It will be done.